Ladies and gentlemen, we're here with another episode of Team Doctor with Jimothy Cool, a series where I take a look at user-submitted teams and I make alterations, save them from the brink of death with medical knowledge. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a submission from Bergenser, YouTube fan for a long time, gamer, tier 3 patron. Thank you very much for becoming a patron and submitting the Team Doctor. I do appreciate the support greatly. This was an interesting one. This took me a while to figure out what the heck to do with it. This team is kind of... I love the brashness of it. You've got a Kangaskhan and Arcanine. You've got a Magneton, Bliss, Starmie, Tar. I think that... You know, Arcanine is not a Pokemon I've ever built around before. So I did seek assistance for this episode. I sent out a plea to the community to help me out with how to build around Arcanine, because it's not something I've done before. I'm not sure. It's an interesting Pokemon. It's weird. And it can do various unique things, but it's also outclassed by other fire types most of the time. But it does have merit to it, so I have maintained the Arcanine and the Magneton on the team. But Bergenser, I hate to inform you this. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it comes with the job, you know. As a doctor, you gotta deliver bad news sometimes. I hate to say it, but Kangaskhan is gone. Kangaskhan does nothing. I'm gonna do something here. I'm gonna search the normal filter. I'm gonna name various... Okay, Snorlax is the obvious pick for a Pokemon that does everything the Kangaskhan does, but better. And I'm gonna, you know, Dodrio, honestly, better than Kangaskhan. Miltank, Slacking, Swallow, Tauros, Ursaring. And all these Pokemon are barely viable, but all of them are better than Kangaskhan. Kangaskhan is... Don't use this. It doesn't do anything. Its stats are not very good. Its move pool is nothing special. The only thing it's got going for it maybe is early bird. You can wake up in one turn instead of 2 turns sometimes. Not really that useful. I guess like rest early bird is something, but you're not bulky enough to really take advantage of it. Normal in general is not a great type in this format unless you're Blissey and Snorlax. Unless you've got the absurd stats to take advantage of the normal typing. And this one had a silk scarf on it. This thing is just getting sand chipped. It was like fake out return. This thing is just going to get sand chipped, intimidate looped. You know how many normal resists exist in the tier? It has speed, but then the speed achieves nothing. I'm sorry, but Kangaskhan has got to go. But Arcanine can stay, Magneton can stay. I think that Arcanine Magneton plus a spinner is an interesting team building exercise, and I'll show you what I decided on here is this interesting squad. So instead of Kangaskhan, we have Snorlax, which has also taken the place of the Blissey. We have a defensive Celebi, a Claydol instead of a Starmie as the rapid spinner, and a Suicune to round it out. And I have also altered the Arcanine. So this is an interesting Arcanine spread you've used here, Bergenser. This is a bulky Arcanine with defense, which I think is not too bad of an idea, and I would like to give credit to Hclat for, you know, we were discussing Arcanine in the ADV Discord. I asked about it, asked if anyone built with it, asked what it does. Hclat sort of just in a spark of genius was like, okay, rest Chesto Arcanine with Thief. And you know what? I was like, there's something there. That's a real idea. Because you rest, you eat the Chesto Berry, you no longer have an item, and you can thief and steal their item. And what this does, on this particular... By the way, I also stole this team idea from Hclat, with the exception of the Celebi. He suggested a Dragonite, but I changed it to a Celebi. What this Arcanine does for this team is that it is a great Gengar check. You know, these guys, Snorlax and Celebi, can have issues versus Gengar. Celebi is weak to Ice Punch, Fire Punch, Explosion, all that. And Snorlax can get Will-O-Wisped. But Arcanine, you know, both of these guys are baiting Gengar to either click Will-O-Wisp or Ice Punch. And then Arcanine can come in on that and threaten it with a pretty strong Flamethrower. It can rest to heal up once to full, and then Thief to steal some leftovers. Stealing leftovers from an important target like an incoming, I don't know, bulky water trying to wall Arcanine, an incoming Swampert, Melodic, Snorlax, Blissey is pretty enormous on a structure like this that is more slow paced. And I think that also Intimidate plus Fire typing. When Celebi's in, Heracross is invited to click a bug move, to click Mega Horn. But in comes Arcanine, it intimidates it resists bug, and it has Flamethrower. Ladies and gentlemen, it's genius. Arcanine is actually rounding out a team defensively a little bit. And Suicune does stuff. It's a defensive wall plus win condition. I think you could also consider Melodic in this slot. Melodic would be alright, but I do think the team needs a source of Roar. I think that Roar is important here, so I've gone with Suicune, and, you know, CM Rest is it's a win condition. With the Heal Bell Celebi supporting these two rest users, the Claydol, Rapid Spinning for all these Spike Weak fellows, the Magneton, which I'm using Sunny Day on because Weather Clear can be good with these guys. These guys appreciate no sand. So we're not using Tyranitar anymore. We're going sandless and running a form of Weather Clear, which sometimes, it doesn't always happen, but sometimes their Tyranitar dies, you Weather Clear, and then your Snorlax is unkillable with leftovers, and so is Suicune and Celebi. Yeah, this team surprised me, and I'd like to thank, you know, the minds of the ADV community for arriving at this idea, and Hclat for proposing this particular set and this structure, Magdoll with Arcanine on it. I think that this is it's something. It can actually perform pretty well as a sort of defensive check to Gengar and like filling out defensive gaps from Snorlax and Celebi. The problem with this team, you can be a bit weak to Jirachi, depending on its coverage. We've got a Snorlax lacking Earthquake. You can't really afford to run Earthquake on it, because then you can't hit Gengar. Maybe you could, and you try to defeat Gengar with the Arcanine and stuff. Dugtrio can be a problem. Dugtrio can eliminate Celebi and Arcanine. But I don't think it's too bad. Dugtrio sacrifices momentum to take out one of these, and then you can start cursing up or get a crucial rapid spin or start Carminding up or, you know, various things. And another problem is Dragonette's Tar can be an issue because we don't have a super sturdy DD Tar check, but with the combination of a defensive Suicune, Curse, Snorlax, and Claydol, I think it's kind of manageable, but you've got to be very, very careful against it, and it could be problematic. Dragonair Salamence is also another issue, but I think that the combo of Suicune and Snorlax can also handle that alright. So I've got some replays to show with this weird squad. You know, it does have holes in it, but it also can achieve things that are quite unique. Here we are with a matchup against I believe this was a physical offense squad. So in comes the Arcanine, walling the Celebi. That's another thing, you're pretty nice against Celebi. I tried to Toxic a bulky water or something coming in, but it was a Snorlax. I think another reason you run Celebi on this squad is to help versus enemy Snorlax. And he just blows up, which I think is alright. That's a decent trade. And here's a situation where Intimidate is coming in handy. I've got Arcanine, and I have intimidated Gyarados, so I know that I live in Earthquake, and then we get a Toxic off on the Gyarados. This could have been a win condition for my opponent, but with the Toxic, we've crippled the Gyarados and allowed Suicune to come in, shrug off hits from the Gyarados, and even Carmine up. In comes Metagross. I go to Magneton, playing around an Explosion. I would rather trade Magneton than Suicune. And I get Arcanine back in. And Intimidate proving pretty useful against this Gyarados. I get Claydol in on what I thought might be an Earthquake. Claydol helping out against this Gyarados as well. I go Arcanine, and look at this, we're intimidating Heracross too. Look at Intimidate being useful as hell. I use Rest here. I thought he might go for Rock Slide since I'm paralyzed. And now that I've rested, I can now Thief something with Thief, as I don't have an item. I can steal the enemy's item. I go to Claydol on a T-Wave. And Arcanine helping a lot versus this enemy Celebi. It turns out to be a really fast Celebi though. And instead of flamethrowing, I thought that he would switch out actually, but just goes for the Psychic and I'm forced out. But that's alright. In comes Snorlax. I believe I 1v1 this Celebi with the Snorlax, but it's... Yeah, we get a crit there. Makes up a little bit for the drop that happened earlier, but that's pretty lucky by me also. This Celebi could have been a problem. I think 2 Shadow Balls would have got him there, actually. I get Arcanine in to intim this Heracross. And now I've got leftovers even. A lucky Rock Slide dodge there. It's a jolly Heracross. I'm actually 270 speed on this Arcanine, specifically to outrun Adamant Heracross. I gotta say that Salak Jolly Heracross is a bizarre set. I don't think he actually would have been able to hit hard enough to break through my team with the combo of Intimidate plus my Bold Suicune. And I just used my Claydol here to finish off this Gyarados. I sacrifice Snorlax. I believe that it's too low to achieve anything else in the battle. And I get Suicune in, which can crucially roar against this Heracross. And remove its boost and sub there. And I get Claydol in on the Magneton. Earthquake moment. And then a Heracross with a Salac Berry is sure to be deceased against my Intimidate, Arcanine, and Bold Suicune. The only chance he's got is Rock Slide flinches. But look at that, my Arcanine can live Rock Slide -1. Isn't that fun? And actually Arcanine himself takes the victory on this one. Tanking the Rock Slide with the defense and health investment, helping out a lot there. Let's take a look at another replay with this squad. We go Snorlax on the Sub-Zap. It's an Agile Pass team. Goes to Heracross with the Agile Pass. And I just return again. Don't want to screw around and let the Heracross sub or Swords Dance up. I can live a Brick Break from full. And in comes Arcanine. Look how useful this is. And this is a fun one. Look at this situation. Not only does the Chesto Berry help by letting you rest up, it also makes you able to tank a sleep right there. Look at that. So even against Hypnosis Gar, we're pretty solid. Isn't that fun? And it also, that would let you come in versus Breloom really safely. You come in and eat the Chesto Berry, and you threaten Breloom out because you're faster with Flamethrower. I honestly love that. I think that's so cool. And here we have Gengar has to pray for a Hypnosis hit, doesn't get it. Get killed. And this Curse Lax is extremely problematic for the enemy. This is not epic at all for my enemy opponent. Bit of greed from Jim, cursing up even further. And yeah, we can just eat the sleep turns. Zap can sub, but to what end? Yeah. Yeah, that was a victory there. I thought that the interaction versus Hypnosis Gar was interesting. This is honestly not a great team. Maybe not the greatest example, but it shows you that even Hypnosis Gar can't own you. It's actually Arcanine helps so much with Gengar. Another battle. This is against some kind of Hariyama TSS. It was knockoff, pretty annoying to deal with. I just take it on the Suicune, chip the Hariyama a little bit. And it's an offensive Starmie here. I do go for a Curse. I didn't expect Scarm necessarily, but it makes decent sense. You know, offensive Starmie usually has Skarmory alongside it. At this time, I wasn't running Magnet on the Mag. I did change it to Magnet afterwards. I do think it's pretty important to one-hit Scarm. They can be annoying when they live and roar you out. And they just never die. Chip heal up a million times, so... I also was running Protect at that time, which was pretty useful right there against Aero. Allowed Claydol in to spin. And look at that. Magdoll proving effective. We've eliminated the spikes. There's no Gengar. On these slower type of TSS squads, there's usually no Gengar. And right here, I go to Suicune because it covers knockoff and it stalls 2 Crush Chop PPs as well. If he happens to have Crush Chop, I also thought maybe Brick Break, but Brick Break wouldn't do enough damage to Snorlax. Crush Chop also has the crit chance on it, which is dangerous for my Snorlax with the curse boosts. Wish Bliss healing up the Yama. A very fat TSS squad here. Continuing with the plan of stalling the Crush Chops. And that's it, no more Crush Chops. 0 out of 8. It doesn't show, but it is 0 out of 8 because of the pressure. Using double the amount of PP. So now the enemy is forfeited. There's no way to break through my Curse Lax anymore. And that's GG, folks. Last replay here. I was playing this team quite a bit. I'll have to refresh my memory as this battle goes on. I don't quite remember. We go Celebi versus the Blissey. It could have T-waved. So I don't want to go straight to Snorlax. I go Mag on the Jirachi. I did expect a Wish. This way you can just scout what it's doing. And I go Arcanine on a Fire Punch. Another way that Arcanine kind of helps when the Jirachi is threatening Fire Punch versus Mag, Arcanine gets a free entry point. Very nice. I use Toxic here on some random switch out. Pays off very nicely. We Toxic a Tyranitar. I consider that to be enormous. We take a Pursuit, but that's alright. We're bulky. 40%, no problem. We got a Chesto Resto in the back. I remember now, this was a Fortress team. I go back to Arcanine. Since my Suicune was forcing out Tar, I could get Arcanine back in for the rest moment. Let me chuck this on fast, because this is a slower paced battle. It's a mixed Salamence. And this is a moment where the enemy doesn't have phasing to deal with a Suicune, so I can just rest loop over and over, and there's nothing much that they can do about it, except toss with this Blissey repeatedly. Not the greatest plan. Even if Tyranitar was a possible role user, but even that would be taking toxic damage, so I'm still at an advantage in that scenario, folks. Even in that instance, I'm at an advantage. This is sort of rest loop over and over for a little bit. Ends up going to Fortress and creating a spike. Sensible, trying to make a bit of progress. But I simply continue with the rest and Carmine loops. Fortress is showing me that it wants to explode and get rid of me. So I go to Magneton. I take that trade. Happy to die on Magneton to get a free entry point for Cladle to come in and rapid spin this spike away. I go for an explode. Nice play by my opponent, playing around it. Goes to Tyranitar. I get Celebi in. I'm faster, and I have a solid roll to kill with HP Grass. I've got a little bit of special attack. And this is a free Leech Seed right here. It's Toxic Jirachi, turns out. And then I get a Heal Bell for my Sleeping Suicune. Heal Bell proving useful. Leech, an insane click. Sometimes Celebi feels like the best Pokemon. You just sort of click Leech over and over and get infinite value. And yeah, my Suicune could just sit in Carmine forever, so here we go. Carmine, rest. But gets Aerodactyl in on the rest for a last-ditch effort to break through my Suicune. You can go for flinches and crits with Rock Slide. So I wasn't sure if I stay or not, but I decided to stay in the end. And hope I don't get flinched, and then lucky me, didn't happen. But the Salamis does get the HP Grass crit to finish me off. In comes Arcanine to save the day, though. Check out what happens. Get thiefed. You're taking Sandstorm Chip now. This Arcanine set is annoying me. What the F? Says my opponent. I don't blame you. So I switch to Snorlax in the interim, and then back to Arcanine for additional Intimidates. Isn't this funny? Isn't this hilarious? I can't believe Arcanine is achieving things defensively. Never thought I'd see the day. And Arcanine can just sit here. I Toxic the Salamence coming back in, trying to do stuff. Go for another rest. Thought he would Dragon Claw. I could just loop him forever and he dies to the Toxic. And I just curse up with the Snorlax. This is a pretty simple endgame, folks. No need to watch the whole thing. And it was over shortly after. Yeah, the Curse Lax, even the Arcanine just rest looping, just defeated everything. So surprised by this team actually achieving wins on the ladder against relatively real enemy squads. We didn't see any like a big 5 TSS, but I think that Mag helps a lot versus it. We might have problems versus Tyranitar. That's the thing that I'm a little bit worried about with this squad, but also Aerodactyl. Might actually consider Protect on the Magneton. We don't need Toxic that badly, I think. You could do Protect on the Mag to help that tiny little bit extra versus sorry, that's not the team. Tiny little bit versus Aerodactyl, and then I guess it's up to you if you want Sunny Day or Toxic last. But yeah, wasn't that a good time? Thanks, everybody. You know, you could actually run a Swampert over Suicune as well. This one could be iterated upon, perfected over time, for sure. Thanks for watching. I hope that, Bergenser, this was at least somewhat in line with your original vision. I kept the Arcanine in the Mag. Did something unique with the Arcanine. If you squint your eyes, Snorlax is a bit like Kangaskhan. You know, they're both normal types that do physical damage and also are based on iconic national animals. I think Snorlax is supposed to be a panda and Kangaskhan is a kangaroo. You know, both iconic animals of China and Australia. Epic stuff, folks. Thank you for watching. If you would like to submit a team for Team Doctor, take a look at my Patreon link in the description for information. Tier 2 patrons and above may submit a team. Thank you very much. Goodbye.